Welcome to the Hoop Show. I'm your co-host, Chad Cook, and this is my other co-host, Will Avery. We've had a little bit of a break in the past few weeks, but now basketball season is right around the corner, and so we're excited to get back to work. Will, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
Yeah. And we have a great group of guests today. What we're going to do today is a special episode previewing some of the great basketball action that we are going to be broadcasting live at netcastsports.com this season. And specifically, we're going to look at the games in the state of South Carolina that we're focusing on, including at the end a group of games involving the nation's #1 high school basketball program for decades now, Oak Hill. So at the end of the show, or in the second portion of the show, we'll talk to Steve Smith, the Oak Hill coach. We'll get Will's take on that program because Will is a former Oak Hill star. But in the meantime, we have a great guest out of Columbia, South Carolina, head coach at Ridgeview High School, John Combs. John, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now, John, in addition to being the head coach at Ridgeview, John is the secretary of the South Carolina Basketball Coaches Association, which is a great group that does a lot of good things in the state of South Carolina. So just recently, we went and broadcast the games for the SCBCA Elite Camp, and you can actually see those games in full, in their entirety at youtube.com/netcastsports. And John, that was a very good event. I've been at a lot of exposure events, and I think the thing that stuck out to me, that impressed me so much, was the guys were playing basketball the right way. They were competing, they were playing together, and you could tell that this wasn't a bunch of random players grouped together. They enjoyed playing together and they played basketball the right way. Were you pleased with the Elite Camp this year?
Oh, absolutely. And a special big thanks to you guys, to ABR Live, for covering it. I mean, it made our Elite Camp just that much better. But the big thing was we had great coaches working the event and even better students that were willing to compete in it. You know, we use it as a showcase event, but we also want it to be a learning tool for our students. And we were just really pleased with the event this year.
Right, and we're playing mostly footage from the boys' games. There were girls as well, 80 boys, 80 girls in attendance over the course of a weekend. And some of the players that stood out to me were Jalen Shaw out of Hartsville High School, defending AAA state champion. Along with Jalen, his teammate Devontae Washington were both there, and Jalen Shaw will be at High Point next year, Division I program, and also Jalen Reed out of Rock Hill High School, but so many good players, and we'll get to some of them in a little while here. Now, Coach, not only does the SCBCA put on that event, but it also hosts an event coming up in about a week, a preseason kind of awards type show. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, next Wednesday we'll have our SCBCA preseason awards banquet. At this banquet, we release our top 5 seniors from each of our 4 classifications, boys and girls. And we also release an Elite 5 players who are the best 5 players from boys and girls from all classifications in South Carolina. So we're real excited where we honor about 40 to 45 different young men and women who are considered some of South Carolina's best players in the state. And we also release our preseason top 10 polls, and we had the preseason #1 team coach speak to kind of talk about the upcoming season. None of the coaches seem to be real excited when they're picked preseason #1 because it puts the bullseye on their back. But it's just a great overall preview for our state.
Yeah, and I've noticed that there seems to be among your coaches, your colleagues, a real solidarity, kind of a group where you root for each other, you work together to put on these events, and do I have that right?
Oh, absolutely. I think our Coaches Association has come a long way in the past few years. I think all the coaches, want to help basketball get better in the state of South Carolina. And I'm just real pleased and honored and it'd be an honor for me to be amongst all these good coaches.
Yes, definitely. Now, speaking of, you mentioned the players that are going to be highlighted at that preseason event, and lots of those players are players who we will see at netcastsports.com. Obviously not just the players, their teams, which is what it's all about. And so we'll go through some of those matchups. November 30th, we will be live for the Irmo versus Lexington game. Big time rivalry in the Columbia area. Irmo features Justin Mackey, who committed to the University of South Carolina several weeks ago, and then also Javis Howard, an inside player, up and coming junior at Irmo, and then their opponent Lexington. Coach, that's a special rivalry, right?
Oh, Lexington and Irmo go way back. I mean, it's a very good rivalry. Both coaches, Coach Harris, Bailey Harris at Lexington, is going to be a Hall of Fame basketball coach. Coach Tim Whipple at Irmo is a Hall of Fame basketball coach. I mean, they've both won multiple state titles. Both of them have produced multiple Division I players. So it's just a good, clean rivalry. When you think good high school basketball, Irmo and Lexington is almost as good as it gets.
Yeah, and it's funny, if anybody wonders, well, how'd they get that great rivalry to open up the season? And we'll have to give credit to Kerry Rich on that. Kerry, a former Gamecock point guard, current radio show personality in the city of Columbia, and he's been great to work with. I know he's an old friend of yours, John.
Oh yeah, me and Kerry go way back in the days when I was a student manager at the University of South Carolina, and Kerry was a senior point guard. He was a fantastic captain for our team, and he's just a great ambassador for basketball.
Yes, and we look forward to he's gonna help us actually call some of these games, and so we're really looking forward to that. And then we move on up to the upstate several days later on a Tuesday, December 4th, to see Dorman versus Hillcrest. I got to look at DJ Brooks and Trey Smith, two guards out of Hillcrest. One, Brooks, going to Mercer next year to play basketball, and the other, Trey Smith, going to Charleston Southern, where Justin Mackey's father, we just talked about Justin Mackey, his father, BJ, is an assistant at Charleston Southern next year. So we look forward to that. And Coach talked a little bit about Hillcrest's players. Dorman, under Coach Thomas Ryan, is a perennial contender, right?
Well, Dorman and Hillcrest are both outstanding basketball programs. I mean, Dorman was in the Final Four just a couple of years ago, and maybe even last year. Hillcrest is coached by Reggie Choplin, is just a fantastic coach. So you're talking about, it would not surprise me if either one of those teams were to play for a state championship, and to have that type of matchup very early is really a fantastic game. I would encourage all the fans to go out there and see it and watch it live.
Right. And you mentioned fantastic basketball games. Well, right after that, we come to your gym, and also Richland Northeast gym, and that's for the Palmetto Northeast Challenge, December 7th and 8th, Friday and Saturday. And the list of teams attending that event is too long for me to properly explain, but Cardinal Newman will be playing, and Austin Ojukwu, who he's going to be a Clemson Tiger next year, right, Coach?
Yeah, that is correct. He had a fantastic summer, and a lot of people were really after him. I know University of South Carolina tried to get in on him as well. I mean, Austin he's actually a close friend with a lot of our guys on our Ridgeview High School basketball team. So I'm really excited to see them.
Yeah, so you have Austin Ojukwu for Cardinal Newman. They'll be playing Dutch Fork on December 7th. Your squad will be in action. We'll have Westwood versus Richland Northeast. Westwood, a new high school with, correct me if I'm wrong, but Terry Dozier, I'm sorry. Terry Dozier is the head coach for that new high school, and they'll be in action against Richland Northeast. One of my personal favorites, Aaron Scott, a two-guard, will be attending Appalachian State next season. He plays at Richland Northeast. Spring Valley will be in action with P.J. Dozier, one of the top sophomores in the country. Kennedy Charter will be there. Olympic will be there. Will, when I told you that Olympic was in action, you quickly informed me of one of their special players.
Yes, I've been keeping an eye on Alaric Freeman in the past, and I just saw that he's signed with UCLA now. So I'm looking forward to seeing that match and watching this kid play. Early on, I thought he would be a guy that my alma mater, the Duke Blue Devils, would be after, him being in state. But I see he's went out west along with some other guys. But I'm interested to see that matchup and watching this kid play.
Yeah, yeah. And so now, Coach, your team will be in action that weekend. We got to look at some of those players, some of your players at the SCBCA Elite Camp. What do you expect out of your squad this season?
Well, I mean, I'm always excited about coaching our players. I mean, we got a new transfer this year named Jose Roman. He's a transfer from Texas, and he's had a fantastic number of practices so far. He's a physical post player. We've got another young man, Jordan Porti, who's a starter for us last year, will be a senior. We're just really excited. I'm really excited about a group. I think we're pretty deep. I think we're deeper than normal. I mean, we could go 9, 10 deep. I don't know if any one particular person is a superstar, but I just really enjoy coaching these guys. So far, they've really bought into our team defense concept. So we're hoping to really just build off that. And we're always excited to play the best. And, we're really looking forward to our tough schedule that we have this year.
Great. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Will.
Okay, Coach, I got to ask you this. You've been a part of some historical moments in South Carolina basketball. You're a part of the program at South Carolina that won the first SEC Conference in '97, right?
That is correct.
All right, and you took Ridgeview to the first state championship, right?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, now, knocking off Oak Hill in December, would that be historical as well?
Oh, absolutely, it sure would be.
Well, I don't know if we're going to get Coach to go out on that limb, though, but go ahead, Coach.
Well, no, that would be historical if we were to do that. Coach Smith has, lost just a few games, and he's won, 900-something games? So, yeah, that would be very historical.
Yes, yes. And talk a little bit about that, because that's the next thing we were going to get to. The following week at Ridgeview High School, Keenan and Oak Hill will play on Friday night. Westwood and Ridgeview will play on Friday night. And then on Saturday, Ridgeview and Oak Hill will play. What high school basketball program doesn't want to get Oak Hill to come to their gym? You've got them coming twice. This will be something like the 6th or 7th time that you've played them. Tell us why, how you're able to do that, and why you think it's very important to take advantage of that opportunity.
Well, I think I've been very blessed at Ridgeview High School that we've had a good program over the past few years, and I just believe in playing the best teams that you can possibly play. And how can you get better than playing Oak Hill Academy? I mean, they're one of the elite, if not the elite, high school basketball program in the country. I just a few years ago, 5, 6 years ago, called Coach Smith up and asked if we could come up there and play them, and we just developed a relationship over the past few years to be able to play. I mean, my kids are going to remember going up to Mouth of Wilson, Virginia forever to play up there. They're going to remember playing against Keith Tiny Gallon. They're going to remember playing against Duron Lamb. They're going to remember playing against Omar Cook. We had Oak Hill Academy at our place 2 years ago. The atmosphere in that gym Friday night was the most unbelievable thing I was a part of as far as a basketball coach. The gym was packed. The energy was high. And we actually played pretty doggone good that day, and we still got beat by 30. We did a pretty good job, certainly the players, but we couldn't handle like E.J. Hammonds, a 6'11" kid that played there. So just, it's not good for your win-loss record, but I think anytime we play Oak Hill, I think our kids get excited to play the best.
That's right. Now, in a particular matchup, that Friday night matchup, were you in attendance last year when Oak Hill and Keenan played?
No, I was not in attendance when it happened, but I kept close tabs on it. And if I'm not mistaken, it was Oak Hill's closest game they had all of last year. I think it was a 1-point game, and that was, Keenan very easily could have beaten Oak Hill that particular night. And Keenan is one of the best programs in the state of South Carolina. Zach Norris, their coach, with Marcus Stroman. I'm expecting another good game, and I applaud Coach Zach Norris for wanting to play Oak Hill. And of course, Coach Steve Smith, he was willing to play as well. So we're just think that's going to be, I think, one of the best matchups in the whole Southeast, maybe in the whole country that particular day.
Yeah, and I bet that the the area, the Columbia area, was just buzzing when Keenan came close to pulling that off, and obviously that should give the guys confidence, and we're showing highlights now of Marcus Stroman, Keenan's junior point guard and leader. So it'll obviously give him confidence, but I'll tell you what, you don't want to make those guys from Oak Hill mad, so good luck to them, and we can't wait to be there to see both your team and Keenan High School to take on that squad. But before we go on to our next guest, Coach, speaking of Keenan, speaking of Marcus Stroman, speaking of a guy we'll get to later, Sindarius Thornwell, we mentioned Justin Mackey earlier. All those guys have committed. All those guys are South Carolina basketball guys. They've all committed to play at the University of South Carolina. That's your alma mater. You've been a part of that program. How excited are guys like you, Kerry Rich, Perry Dozier, Terry Dozier, the guys in that community, to see Frank Martin hit the ground running with all these South Carolina guys who are really, really good players?
Well, I think everybody's extremely excited about Frank Martin. I mean, he's come in with a high level of energy, and he's just ready to. He's hit the ground recruiting hard. Anytime we've requested him to do anything, come speak at a coaches association clinic, he was able to do so right away, and did so very, very willingly.
Yeah, great. Well, do you have any questions for Coach Combs before we go, Will?
Well, one of the things I didn't get a chance to get over to the exposure thing you did, but watching it, I feel like you all have a lot of really good players in the state of South Carolina. When you look at Dozier, Thornwell, Stroman, do you feel like South Carolina is underrated when it comes to basketball? And if so, do you have any events in the future where you look to get guys more exposure to change that?
Well, I do think South Carolina is underrated. We're a small state. We got a small population compared to most, even North Carolina and Georgia. But I do believe we produce some high-quality players, and we're hoping our Coaches Association will build off what we did here in the fall and even do more things in the spring as well.
Yes. Yeah, well, we were very impressed, and thank you so much, Coach, for being on with us. We look forward to all these games in December, hopefully more after that, and we look forward to the preseason event that we'll see you at next week.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
And good luck with your season, Coach.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate it.
Okay, as promised earlier, we have a very special guest with us in our next segment. That's Steve Smith, head coach at Oak Hill Academy. But before we get to talking to Coach Smith, we're gonna talk about his accomplishments, which are almost too many to name. Coach Smith has coached 29 NBA players that have gone through Oak Hill, 13 of them still active. He's had 8 national championships. He's coached 28 McDonald's All-Americans. Many coaches at all levels have gone very long careers without coaching any of those. He has been the head coach in the McDonald's All-American game. That was in 1995. And he also is the 4-time National Coach of the Year. The Oak Hill name is the gold standard in high school basketball. My partner, as we mentioned earlier, Will Avery, played at Oak Hill. So, Will, what was it like as a 17-year-old guy to go into that atmosphere?
The first thing, I can remember right off just walking into the gym and seeing the history, with the jerseys and the rafters and the All-American list. So right away, I wanted to get my name, on that list and definitely have a jersey, hanging. So that's the first thing that struck me about Oak Hill.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Coach Smith, thank you for joining us. It's certainly an honor for us.
Sure, good to be with you guys.
Great. Now, Coach, before we get to the team and let Will take over with the questions, I've got a question. We Georgia boys here knew we had something special with Will, but Oak Hill Academy, Duke University, NBA seems so far away when you're in our position. And so when he went away, we thought that was a pretty big deal. What was it like when you first encountered Will and brought him into your program?
Well, Will was an exciting player. I saw him play AAU ball with Norm Parker and the Georgia AAU team there, and thought thought he had a lot of qualities that would be good at Oak Hill. Obviously, he's a great player, but I thought he was a good kid as well, and I knew he could do the work academically, and that's what he wanted to do to make sure he got himself situated and ready to go to college. And I wish I had a little better player around him that year because he was a very exceptional point guard. What I liked about Will was his ability to score the ball. I love point guards that can score, and Will never saw a shot he didn't like, even at the point position. So we had to tone him down a little bit and get him to play within the system that we had. And we had some great guards that year. We started 3 guards, I remember, with Will, and we just didn't have the right front court guys, I don't think, to have the best team that we could possibly have that year. But Will was an exceptional player. You mentioned looking at the banners and the jerseys, and we do have his jersey, and we do have his name on the wall in our gym.
I bet. And, you mentioned a shoot-first point guard, a scoring point guard. You've had all kinds of point guards, all great. I think of Brandon Jennings kind of in that same mold as a scorer. And then you go like just last year, Tyler Lewis and Rajon Rondo in the past. And then, a guy that probably fits into none of those categories way back, Rod Strickland. So you've coached who's who of the best point guards to ever come through our game.
Yeah, we've had a lot of great point guards, and we're kind of like a point guard academy. We talk about point guard U at Arizona and these other schools, but we feel like we've had our share of point guards, and Will's included in that bunch. And we've had some really good guards that could run teams and have gone on to play in the NBA. We've had 9 guys play that position for us to point and then play in the NBA. So and I attract good guards every year, and that's part of the reason why. They know the guards that have been here. They know the point guards that have played here. And so every year, that's usually the first thing I do is make sure I got the right point guard to run my team.
Yeah, you mentioned Arizona, and then, you think back to the days of like Georgia Tech and New York itself, places
Right.
synonymous with point guards, and Oak Hill can go toe-to-toe with any of those places. So,
Georgia Tech had, back in the 90s, had their long list of point guards. And, of course, Will mentioned before, he could have gone about anywhere. He went to Duke and played for the national championship while he was at Duke, had a great career there. And he was a great point guard for us. Like I said, I just wish I would have had a little better player around him and been able to help him win a championship at Oak Hill as well.
Yeah. Now, Will, take it from here. I know you've got some questions for Coach Smith about this year's team.
Well, Coach, last year you finished 44-0 and won, your 8th national championship. What are you looking for out of this team that you have right now? And tell us about some of the players that you have on this year's team.
Yeah, I think we're comparable. It's hard, it's hard to go 44-0. We're everybody's big game outside of a state championship game. They circle Oak Hill on their schedule, and we know we have to get up and play every night. We can't have off nights or we'll get ourselves beat. And it's tough. We have a very talented team this year. Our point guard is Nate Britt, who's going to North Carolina. He committed about 4 or 5 months ago back in the summer. Troy Williams, who's the best player in Virginia, who plays for the Boo Williams AAU team. He's transferred in, and he just committed to Indiana. Sindarius Thornwell is a guard that most people down your way know a lot about. He's about 6'5". He's from Lancaster, South Carolina. Obviously, he's excited to come to Columbia and play in the Ridgeview Classic because he's going to be going to South Carolina. We've got another guard, Ike Arabu, going to Washington State. We've got really good backcourt players this year. We're about 5 deep in the backcourt. I start 2 guys that are high D1, and we've got 2 D1 guys coming off the bench to back those guys up. And our front court, I think, is strong enough. We're not quite as big as last year, but I really like the fact that we've got a couple 6'8" guys that will bang, and they're really competitive. They play physical, and that may give us an edge up on most teams most nights.
All right. Okay, Coach. Every year, year in and year out, you play the toughest schedule, and I always tell guys that ask me about my experience at Oak Hill that, it's not so much physically, it's more so mentally because of, the schoolwork, the travel, and things of that nature. Talk about how you get guys, ready to play such a grueling schedule that causes, you to travel all over the country.
Yeah, we try to simulate kind of what you guys will go through when you get to college and make sure that you're prepared as freshmen to handle all that is required of you as a college player. But, we travel, and we have study table every night now at 8:30. It's changed a little bit from when you were here. 8:30 to 10 is our study table at night, and we practice in the afternoons now. They go to school starting at 7:50 in the morning. We have Saturday morning classes. They go to church together on Sunday. It's a pretty grueling schedule while they're here, and then we travel most weekends. Starting in December, we're going to travel, I think, 8 straight weekends outside of Christmas. and try to challenge these guys to play on the road and play the best competition. I love playing, putting our guys up against the best players. I love coaching against the best coaches in high school basketball, and I want our guys to play against the best teams and see where we stack up. Some high school programs don't do that. They don't. And some aren't able to. Some states don't allow you to travel, but in Virginia we can. So we like to challenge our guys and get them ready to play the best teams out there and the best players out there, and then get them ready so when they get to college, most of our guys play right away as freshmen.
Okay. Now, I have the privilege of covering you guys in December against a Kenan team that took you down to the wire last year. So, this is the national championship for Kenan with you guys coming in there at December. Tell us a little bit about that game last year and what do you expect from a Kenan team which has Marcus Stroman, who played really well in last year's game, is committed to South Carolina. He's a junior now. Tell us what you expect from Kenan in December.
Well, one thing, they're not going to be scared of us because they almost beat us last year, and they were our closest game. I don't think they were the best team talent-wise on our schedule, but they gave us the best competition. Matchups have a lot to do with games, and they were smaller than we were. We struggled to guard them on the perimeter. They got to the basket a lot. Hopefully we'll take away that a little bit more this year. I think our team is better defensively than we were last year. I think we're a little quicker and a little more athletic. And I don't know if we're more talented, but I do think we're better on the defensive end, and that should help us against Kenan. Their point guard, as you mentioned, he pretty much dissected us, did what he wanted to do, and he's probably the only guy all year I felt that outplayed or played up to par with Tyler Lewis, our point guard, who went on to play at NC State, was a McDonald's All-American. He's the reason they stayed in the game. They just kept attacking the basket. They had shorter shots than they normally had to take. Luckily, we played zone the last possession, forced them to take a three-point shot. We ended up beating them by one, but it was an unbelievable game. The atmosphere, the crowd. Of course, everybody in Columbia is going to be rooting for Kenan. We know that. But our guys, by then, hopefully will have played enough road games that they'll be up to the task and ready to play that night.
Yeah, should be good. Homecoming for Sindarius Thornwell, so it should be really good. All right. Before I let you go.
Hopefully Sindarius won't force his play too much because he is playing in front of the home crowd. But I know at least we'll have some fans this year we didn't have last year.
And I know how that can be. I had that experience with Oak Hill coming down to Augusta having 2 games. So, that could be tough.
Yeah, we wanted to bring Will back to Augusta, and so we did that during Thanksgiving break the year that Will played for us. And we played pretty well down there.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing about Sindarius is he doesn't always have the ball in his hands. you had the ball in your hands, so the other guys were helpless, right?
Yeah, exactly. they understood, though, because, we played close to everybody's home at some point in time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But before I let you go, Coach, I want you to give me, I know you don't like to do this, your all-time starting 5 players that have been through Oak Hill. Give me your starting 5.
I get asked that a lot. That's hard. I defend a lot of guys. I wanted to defend Will Avery today. As good as he was, wow, it's tough. At the point position, it's hard to do it by position. Just if I go by players, you got to start with Carmelo Anthony, who I think he played great for us, and then he went on to Syracuse, won a national championship the only year he was there, and now he's an NBA All-Star. He's played in a couple of Olympics already. I would have to put Carmelo on there. KD played here, Kevin Durant. Hard to keep him off that list. Jerry Stackhouse, Josh Smith, those guys probably won't make the list, but they're good enough to be on there. If I had to pick a point guard right now, I'd probably have to pick Rajon Rondo just because of what he's done in the last 3 or 4 years. Second year in the NBA, he led his team to an NBA title, and he might. For us, he was really, really outstanding here. People thought he was. I knew he was underrated, and people didn't know how good he was, and he kind of blew up his senior year at Oak Hill. He wasn't even listed in the top 10, 15 point guards in his class when he first transferred in here, and of course he played with Josh Smith here. We went undefeated, and so I'd have to put Rajon on that list. Man, it's tough. Ron Mercer was a great high school player and a great college player. It's hard for me not to put him on there. He didn't turn out to be as good in the pros. He had some injuries and knee problems and retired at 29, but I'd have to put Ron on the list as well. He was a Naismith winner, and then probably Brandon Jennings because he won the Naismith Award too. We had 2 Naismith winners, Brandon and Ron, since I've been here, and they're probably not the 2 best players here, but they did win the Naismith Award for being the outstanding high school player that year, so hard to keep those guys off the list.
Okay.
hard to compete with that 5 too.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say? I mean, I think Rondo is, if not the best, one of the best point guards in the game. Man, correct me if I'm wrong. Coming out of high school, Rondo wanted to go to Louisville, but they had agreed to take Sebastian Telfair, right?
Absolutely correct. He wanted to go to Louisville, and that's his hometown, and he always wanted to go there. And they took Telfair. You know, Pitino's a New York guy. He took Telfair, who's a New York kid, and turned out to be a mistake because Telfair never got there. He went pro, and of course Rajon has flourished since then. But
Yeah.
then I called Tubby Smith and said, look, he wants to go to Louisville. He'll go to Kentucky with one phone call. That's actually how he got to Kentucky because they weren't even recruiting him at the time.
Okay.
Wow. So he goes to Louisville's biggest rival.
And the rest is history. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not even close to compare the two guys now.
Right.
Well, Coach, thanks for being on the show, man. I look forward to seeing you in December. Looking forward to you bringing me some brownies in December. And,
I'll have some of Miss Brownies with me, and I'll bring them to Columbia. And we're excited to play Keenan and Ridgeview, and we're also excited to see Will Avery.
all right. Thanks, Coach. Tell Miss
All
Smith
right.
I said hello.
All right, thanks.
Take that.
Well, thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in to this week on the Hoop Show. And you've got to share some brownies when Coach comes
without
to town.
a doubt, the best brownies you ever had by far.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.